KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We're up in all those places, so as to say that, well, whatever works for you. If you're able to tune in and find out what is going on and get in on that discussion about the things that affect us here in the borderland, well, you're more than welcome to, because that is our purpose. That is what we continue to do, and we'll hopefully keep doing for, well, as long as they keep me on air anyway. I mean, I think it'll be more than that, but seriously, we got a lot going on here today. There are definitely some familiar topics already coming up here, as we have Ida Beza Gardner chiming in, waving over there on the Facebook page there. Thank you. Appreciate and also dropping that like and react there. We do appreciate that as well. You can do that throughout the program. Again, that's another reason we bring up the social medias, because it's one of those places that you can leave your 2 cents throughout the program. But lots to get into here today. I don't think it would come as any great surprise that border security, immigration, and the current crisis we are seeing in our region definitely topping some of the charts of attention. I don't know. A lot of people are very wanting to pay attention to this, and a lot of issues coming along with it. And some more stats, figures, including what is driving some of what we are seeing immediately, even if some of those deeper underlying questions that y'all have been asking about how are still remaining out there, including what about local public funds? Also, what is going on with the demographics? What is leading to this happening immediately in our area? But also some very interesting stats on what is actually going on with the entire border region and the arrests going on here. So yeah, we'll definitely be delving into that. Kind of calling it that. We'll see if we get to other topics today. Still have some very important updates and things coming out with both the downtown arena. A lot of conversation going along that. So no, it's not even just rehashing what we were supposed to talk about yesterday, but didn't get to, because the immigration crisis we're seeing in our area is absolutely taking up quite a lot of brain space. But also some very interesting developments going on involving the district attorney's office for El Paso, as well as the controversy surrounding it, the court filings specifically among them. Delve into those as much as we can here, but we got a lot to get to in the meantime, so let's dive right in there. Some very interesting Washington Post reporting that arrests along the U.S.-Mexico border top 2 million a year for the first time here, specifically that we're on pace for about 2.3 million arrests happening during this fiscal year. So the fiscal year, when it comes to federal immigration authorities, ICBP, etc., goes from the end of September, well, ends at the end of September here. So we got one more week to see what we could top. And just to put a comparison with the previous year, there was about 1.7 million arrests for the same period. So essentially think beginning of October through the end of September. That's the period of time we're talking about each year over year. So these arrests, again, slight difference from the encounters number, it does seem that we are also talking about, because specifically this is when they are then being detained. So we're not even, I think, particularly including those Title 42 removals, but as with a lot of these things, the numbers can get a little murky. So I'm fairly confident in that, but we'll keep looking at it and see what the actual situations are, because, yeah, we're looking at quite a lot of, I mean, last year was already breaking records in its own way. And of course, as this has continued on and we continue to see it ramp up here, yeah, the fact that we, again, give the numbers I just mentioned there, that we are already at 2 million arrests for this year, and we're expecting to hit on track to 2.3 million for this year, fiscal year, again. So that means we got that 0.3 to go, that roughly 300,000. And not saying that's all going to be right here in our sector, the El Paso sector of the border, but it's going to come somewhere, and definitely part of that is going to be happening right here. So some of the details that we have coming out, including reporting involving our news partners over at KFOX 14, and some national reporting going on with this here. including the Associated Press, talking about border crossings among Venezuelans have been really ramping up, which is not exactly a surprise here in our area as what we have been hearing, but more specifically that Venezuelans have passed Guatemalans and Hondurans, become the second largest nationality after Mexicans among those crossing the U.S. border illegally, according to stats from U.S. federal officials. So this was the third straight month for August that fewer immigrants from Mexico and Central America's Northern Triangle countries of Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras came across. Those nationalities have dominated the mix for decades, as noted again by our news partners over there at KFOX 14. So we're definitely seeing some shifts. If there's one thing that I feel like I've said decently consistently on this, is that the only thing that can be relied upon in this whole immigration situation, what's going on with border security and the challenges being faced with it, is that it's going to shift. Change is about the only constant, paradoxically enough. And so this next wave, this next encounter or set of them, or however you want to describe it, is really presenting specific challenges again for our region. Beyond the fact that we have people presenting themselves right here in the region, the fact that there is not a way to, well, I mean, the sponsorship. I know that question about what that actually means has come up here. It seems to me, anyway, that phrase has been getting used a little fast and loose here, because when you tell me sponsorship, that someone is sponsoring you, I'm imagining something programmatic, something like, okay, you have filled out paperwork, you are doing a thing. Heck, if you want to go like, AA style about it, Alcoholics Anonymous, you have, signed your name essentially up, even if it's very informal. You've made it clear that you are doing something. But in this case, whenever we're talking about that, and I know it's coming a lot with the fact that in the conversation that we've had with city officials about the idea of lack of sponsorship for Venezuelans specifically, it's not necessarily like someone said, yes, I will take this person into my home, I will be responsible for them. It seems to be being more used along the lines of there's some place for them to go, some family connection, something waiting for them, etc., something along those lines. So sure, there may be a concentrated and a programmatic aspect of it, but it doesn't really seem like this doesn't like a form's been filled out. Let me put it that way. So that's why that is part of the situation and part of that recent change, and why it is causing so many issues literally on our streets here, even as there have been, including more reporting by Texas Tribune, reporting on today, El Paso scrambles to move migrants off streets and give them free bus rides as shelters reach capacity. Talking and specifically noting one story of a Venezuelan couple sleeping on a sidewalk after a perilous trip through 7 countries with their baby. After 2 days in El Paso, they boarded a city-funded charter bus to New York City, doing the sub-headline of it there. So those are just some of the situations here. One of the interesting ones I mentioned in the announcement post about reimbursements coming here again from our news partners there at KFOX 14 as of today, that El Paso County receives $2 million from FEMA due to migrant crisis and awaits further reimbursement. So that is, I think, part of the conversation. A lot of people were asking yesterday, where has that $7 million figure that was come up with to do the migrant processing center? At least 2 different facilities seemingly being considered by the county lately, either one out near the airport and also maybe repurposing some of those outbuildings around the El Paso County Coliseum, previously used for livestock shows. Essentially, I think like the county fair kind of grounds is what we're talking about there. Not exactly the county fairgrounds, but related to those activities. I mean, it's decently close to Escatete if you think about it that way. Point is that this response keeps evolving and keeps moving forward, and we're definitely going to be talking a lot more about this here today, and a whole lot of conversations coming on there. Elmira Coleman says that El Paso Matters, yes, reporting that the city spends $300,000 per day towards the migrant situation. The feds are slow to reimburse, still awaiting reimbursements for 2021. That's one point to be made there. Absolutely. Louis Pinato saying there is no border security, my dude. I still think that does a disservice, and frankly, probably doesn't help the mentality of any of those that are doing that work when it comes to the Border Patrol, CBP agents in our area. But if you want to make the point about there not being a lack of actual policy being put into place, I'll agree with you on that point. RJ saying DeSantis to be arrested by Bexar County Sheriff. Yeah, right. 2 million caught. How many snuck in? That is a finer point in question that comes up as part of all of this, as well as Todd Fisk saying the city is paying firefighters overtime to assist with the processing centers. That is part of my understanding as well, that there's been a lot being spent there, and something that we did have from the deputy city manager, Mario D'Agostino, when we spoke with him in recent weeks. You might recognize him from previous, if you're like really, it's kind of more of a news junkie moment if you've really been paying attention, but comes from the firefighter and that part of the public safety background here for the city of El Paso, previously moving up into where it is now in the position he has now, including looking over the Office of Emergency Management. And one of the questions we asked him was about use of city facilities, city/county, that whole conjoined department things that sometimes happens around here. And the simple answer was yes, some are being used as processing centers, not as shelters was, well, the point at that point in time. Whether that has continued to shift, we'll have to ask a little bit further about here. But we'll get to more of these comments and a lot more coming up here. But going to be talking now again this hour, going to be having our guest on, Lupe de la O, Vice Chair with the El Paso County Republican Party, both talking about what is going on, because those elections, I know it has been not necessarily the most top of mind thing, unless you've been listening to all of the advertisements happening everywhere, because yeah, it's ramping up and we're within that, what are we now, like 40 some odd, 50, low 50, 40 some odd change. Let me look up the exact time countdown here, but yeah, we're getting closer to it. So we're going to be talking a little bit about what local party involvement is coming up to that, but then also she has some unique experience and able to talk about and comment on the immigration situation. So we are going to be getting to that break now and getting to that interview. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in. We'll keep getting to those here after the interview, and also that phone line a little bit later as we usually do. In any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back in a minute.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Police and Fire on the scene of an injury crash. I-10 westbound at Sunland Park. Expect delays there. Gateway West westbound at Sumac, an injury accident reported. On the 10 eastbound downtown from the Campbell Street exit to the 54 Patriot, 11-minute delays, bumper to bumper. An injury accident Rushing Drive at Trans Mountain, and a crash with injuries North Loop Drive at North Carolina. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Most of the time, traffic is pretty good. But there are times when traffic can be pretty bad. No, I mean like really bad. Almost, but more like an asteroid's gonna hit the city and everyone's trying to get out of town at once and nobody's car is moving and people are running down the highway clutching their kids and whatever belongings they can grab. Yep, now you got it. It's times like these you need your severe traffic station. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories podcast.
Batman is one of the most recognizable superheroes in the world, with media spanning comic books, television shows, movies, and beyond. But a half a century ago, he almost became a thing of the past. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Getting a news feed on your phone while driving
makes driving more difficult.
This is dangerous.
Getting a news feed without a computer or mobile device?
It would be impossible.
Unless, of course, you get your live news feeds at the top and bottom of the hour.
It's easy.
Traffic and weather all day.
It's as simple as that.
Trending stories tend to change.
Every minute of every day.
Twice an hour, we'll feed your curiosity.
Stay informed.
Shouldn't we listen?
They're hungry.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Subscription required. Refund available for 60 days after purchase.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 90% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. You'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the biggest brands at 90% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but 90% cheaper. It's the same medication you get from your doctor, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. Results are guaranteed or your money back. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
During this interruption, let's talk about disruption, emerging new channels, cookieless media. Marketers, are you missing out on one of the most engaged audiences in today's new open web? With Viant's programmatic software Adelphic, stay in tune with digital audio, stream the future on CTV, and level up with in-game. so you can see an average 3 times return on ad spend, maybe even on this very program next time. Viant, built for the new open web. Built for now. Visit ViantNow.com to learn more.
The dollar is in grave danger as Russia and China recruit more nations into their anti-dollar alliance known as BRICS. If this continues, how much longer until the dollar is worthless? Stephen K. Bannon here. I urge you to get Birch Gold's free info kit on safeguarding your savings into a gold IRA. To get your free copy, text the word safeguard to 989898. With inflation continuing to explode, it's critical you take action today. Text safeguard to 989898 right now.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
we welcome open-minded individuals
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
with open arms
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
for open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media sites we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot more comments we'll be taking, of course, and mentioning over from there. You can keep leaving them during the interview here because we will pop some of them up here. But otherwise, we are talking now, as we mentioned in the previous segment, with Lupe de la O, Vice Chair for the El Paso County Republican Party. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely happy to talk with you here because, I mean, we've been talking about this upcoming election since the last election. It kind of feels like at this point already, but more specifically, we've been talking about all of the things that we are expected to either take place, be a part of it, general expectations overall here. Again, voter turnout is a well-worn yarn on my part that longtime listeners of the show will be familiar with here, but also, party involvement is kind of a key part of that here. And we've had some discussions in the past about, the involvement or sometimes seemingly lack thereof for the general voter here in El Paso. Whether or not they actually feel connected to the local party infrastructure has been kind of a pressing question. So you, as a newly in place there, vice chair for it, when you think about what it means to vote or the mentality of the average voter here in El Paso, how do you all even begin to conceive about that or wonder what you can do to hopefully have more people voting?
Yes, I'd like to start by saying that personally, I voted since I was 18 years old, and I think I voted in every single election unless I was out of town or something.
I would be horrified myself to know if I missed one, so I can understand that entirely.
So I know that when I speak to other people, I know what I'm feeling, what I'm talking about, so I can understand what they're saying. And recently, this is the first time in years where every day, everybody I speak to, a lot of them are telling me that they're not very happy with what's going on right now with high inflation, high taxes, high cost of the food and gasoline, especially.
Mm-hmm.
So they're calling us. I'm in charge of talking to volunteers, and people are calling us and telling us they want to help us and they want to vote differently now, rather than sticking to their party. They want to vote more their values and more what affects them the most, which is their pocketbook.
Of course, this happens a lot of times during, midterm elections, as we're coming up again. May have seemed like a lot longer than that. This is the first midterm election for, of course, the Biden administration. And oftentimes it ends up being, kind of a referendum on, the party in power and whoever is in charge of the White House here. So there's some strong expectations that there could be more movement that way. Though, of course, there are some realities here in El Paso County that are often talked. I mean, it's often the conventional wisdom here is that El Paso is a blue county. My contention on that is that we're not a red, blue, pink, purple, green, whatever county. We're a non-voting county. So again, challenging that here, because I'm almost remembering the line from, Charlie Wilson's, where we took, truckloads of people over who did not usually vote here, felt disenfranchised from it, ordered to vote, and saw a change in the election. And that's when he fell in love with democracy in America. Essentially, that kind of mentality or that kind of action might almost be useful here because of the complete lack of voters that we usually have. I mean, the last, school board elections we were in, and the, constitutional amendment elections specifically, we were in those, not even high single digits, but low single digits, like 3%. And I think we hit 6% on the runoff here. So just bad, just overall here. So even beginning to tackle that, of course, you called into the show last week and spoke a little bit about, what's going on, some of the events coming up here. So you all have a schedule of events and kind of, trying to tackle some of these issues, right?
Yes, we do. And I'll go ahead and comment on what you just commented on. And I have experience. I was the Paso County Republican Party chair before moving back to El Paso last year. And I was a chair there for 7 years. And what I have seen based on my experience is the non-presidential election years are the ones where people have like less of an interest. They don't want to vote. And I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people, they just vote to say they voted. They don't really know the issues. They don't know the candidates. They don't know what's going on. And they just want to say, people say, go out and vote. So I voted. But that was it. They walk in and a lot of name recognition. They vote for, I've heard that name before, so I'll vote for that name. A lot of them, I've had even candidates like this year in this election in Hudspeth County for our primary, we had 14 Republicans running. And a couple of them told me, I've always voted Democrat, and I don't know why. My uncle told me many years ago I had to vote Democrat, so I did. So now they got more involved and more knowledgeable. So it's the knowledge. You need to inform yourselves. You need to become informed as to what's going on, and that's what I tell people. But what we're doing this year at the El Paso County Republican Party is we're calling a lot of people. We're putting the word out. We're asking for volunteers. We're looking for people to volunteer either at the office with our computer system, with our phone banking, with our block walking. We've been doing block walking for a couple of months now. Every Saturday we started. Now we're doing it every day.
Oh, really? Okay.
And we're looking for poll watchers. We're short of poll watchers because we want to make sure that everything is done right. There aren't anything going on that's not supposed to inside the voting booths, the polling places. We're looking for clerks, election clerks, and they get paid about $170 for that day. So we're looking for those. And precinct chairs. We're still missing a lot of precinct chairs, especially in the Lower Valley. So it's basically you're like the head or the president of your little neighborhood. You go out and tell people, if you have conservative values, which most Hispanics do. We're all very conservative, and a lot of immigrants that have come over and have been here, they are here because they didn't want to live in a socialist country anymore. So we have to try not to turn our country into something that is opposite of what our Constitution says, which the first three words are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So we believe in life, and we believe in us being individuals and doing whatever we want, whatever we can. And the pursuit of happiness, if making a lot of money makes us happy, that's fine. You can go out and do it. If you just want to live comfortably, that's fine. But at least that's your right and your choice. And we would like to keep it that way. We have upcoming events, like I mentioned. Every Saturday we have block walking, and there's a couple of phone numbers I can give you for you if you're interested in joining us.
Please.
Yes. We have a gentleman named Tim Brown. You can call him at 915-308-3081, and he will set you up with an app that we have through our phone where they tell you what address to go to, and you report back. We have another gentleman here in El Paso who is working directly for Governor Abbott. His name is John Green, and you can call him anytime. He'll be glad to hear from you. Area code 706, and the number is 604-9295. We've had several fundraisers for our congressional candidate, Irene Armendariz Jackson, and we've had some for our other candidates also, their state candidates. And this weekend we had a fundraiser for our county commissioner, precinct 4 candidate Blanca Trout.
Right.
and we invited everybody. A lot of people came. It was very successful. Now, we will have another fundraiser on October 6th with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. He's going to be here, and it's going to be a barbecue luncheon.
Really, a question I'm trying to get at here is that, again, in the sense that I have largely got, not necessarily from our listeners or commenters who tend to be more politically active, but from the general person in El Paso. You stop someone on the street here and you ask them, I mean, they might know who certain, high-level elected officials are, hopefully the governor, though I wouldn't necessarily bet money on that because of how uninvolved El Pasoans are. But if you ask them anything about, say, local parties, in any case here, they might just give you a completely blank stare on the balance here. They're essentially completely missing from the lives of, again, the average voter here in El Paso here. So do you see these kind of increased, block walking, these party-specific efforts here, as opposed to only on the parts of candidates, as more of a way to get engaged and get knowledgeable with the average voter here and let them know that, yes, there are things going on here, and as such as people running, and hopefully they coordinate together, but there actually is, more in conjunction, something like that happening with it.
Yes, what we do and what I do is I'll ask them, I'll engage them in conversation. I say, well, why do you like this elected official? What has this person done, or what is he doing? How has your life improved in the last 4 years or 2 years, whatever? And many times they cannot answer. They don't know. They don't have an answer. So I'll explain to them, more or less what everything means, and why. Well, do you believe in this? Well, no. Do you believe in that? Well, no. And well, maybe you're a conservative. You just don't know it. And I talk about the conservative issues, but that's mostly like a one-on-one, and they are very appreciative, and so it would be hard to get the entire city, but that's what we're trying, focusing, on certain precincts, and we have our precinct chairs. We're asking them to go out and talk, do their own block walking, like I'm doing my own block walking in my neighborhood here. And so, yes, you have to explain to them, especially like the elderly. Many times they don't know, or you tell them something and then they go home and their children tell them something different, so they're confused. So I try to inform them. I tell them, just try to stay informed. Ask somebody, or listen to your news, or look it up in Google.
So given the variety of events you got coming up here, those phone numbers that you mentioned here, if people want to find out more details about both what you all have going on and how they can find about the upcoming events here, what's the best place for them to do so? Is there a particular website or social media? I know there is the Facebook EPTX GOP. Is there any other places that you'd like to direct people towards to, again, find out about all this information and how they can potentially get involved?
Yes, well, we have our email address. I'll put it out. It's El Paso, spelled out, ELPASOTXGOP @gmail.com. And we have a website, and we're always asking for donations because we have a lot of events and things that we're doing. And our website is www.epgop.org. And of course, our Facebook is facebook.com/EPTXGOP. And our phone number, our office phone number is 915-219-9045. And our office address is 7717 Lockheed Drive, Suite D, El Paso, Texas, 79925, which is right there. Lockheed runs parallel to Montana between Airway and Hawkins. We want it to be more centralized so that we could have easy access for it. No matter where you live, it wouldn't be that far. And also, I mentioned some of the candidates, and I did not mention Ida Baeza Gardner. She's running for JP in Precinct 4, which covers the west side. And the county commissioner precinct covers the west side and Canutillo and northeast.
Right, and, it kind of straddles the mountain there.
Yes. And the JP covers the west side and Canutillo all the way to the state line.
Again, guest right now is Lupe de la O, Vice Chair for the El Paso County Republican Party. Again, for more information about the events, efforts, all those things going on here, again, there's epgop.org, as well as the Facebook EPTXGOP for El Paso County Republican Party. We've got to take that next break right now. So come out of this break, we'll continue our conversation about many of the other things going on, the issues in our area, including some of your experience and how it's relevant to it. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. The owner of a popular restaurant in Las Cruces has been arrested and accused of shooting and killing his wife. Bob Iaconi was shot by Doña Ana County Sheriff's deputies when they responded to a call at his Picacho Hills home on Sunday night. According to a news conference today, Iaconi killed his wife, who was the owner of Forget About It Italian restaurant. Deputies had responded to a 911 call about an injured woman. When they arrived, they found the victim, Kim Iaconi. That's when her husband allegedly got into a shootout with deputies. He was shot and wounded, but is expected to survive. In El Paso, a sculpture of famed Mexican President Benito Juarez is expected to arrive tonight and will be installed tomorrow at the Chamizal National Memorial. The 12 Travelers of the Southwest Memorial is a nonprofit group that raised more than $200,000 to pay for the sculpture. The Benito Juarez sculpture depicts him as a boy sitting next to his adult counterpart. It will be formally dedicated on Sunday. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A ton of crashes in the last 20 minutes on I-10, both directions. I-10 westbound at Executive Center Boulevard. A crash there is blocking 2 right lanes. Expect delays. I-10 westbound at Mesa Street. That's exit 11. Right lane and the left shoulder is blocked from a crash there. I-10 eastbound at Kansas. A couple of semis up on the right shoulder from a crash. And a 3-vehicle crash Gateway West at Sumac. Right shoulder's blocked. Stay to the left. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the Forewarn Weather Center, this is CBS 4 weather forecaster Brady Brewster. Temperatures still staying slightly above normal. That's not going to just be today. That'll be all the way through your work week and even into your weekend. We're looking at those daytime highs in the lower 90s, and we're also going to be drying out across the borderland, so a lot more sunshine to come as well. Be sure to visit our website, cbs4local.com, for a full look at your 7-day forecast.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The Ethereum merge just happened, and I'm going to break it all down for you. What does it mean? What are the trade-offs? What's the misinformation and more? I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The United States had its biggest spike in murders ever recorded last year. That's according to a new report out from the FBI.
Across America, crime has exploded. Police officers killed in the line of duty, 28 in Texas alone. Here's what Beto O'Rourke had to say.
I really love that Black Lives Matters and other protesters have put this front and center to defund police forces.
That's right. Beto O'Rourke stands with groups that support defunding and dismantling the police. But it gets worse. Listen to this from Beto.
The criminal justice system is just part of a larger system rooted in slavery that is alive and well in this country today.
Defund the police, comparing criminal justice to slavery. That's Beto O'Rourke. He is too radical, too dangerous for Texas. And it's why Beto O'Rourke should never be governor of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Wendy's Biggie Bag is still just $5. Get a double stack junior bacon cheeseburger or crispy chicken BLT plus 4-piece nugs, small fries, and a small drink. Grab your bag at Wendy's today. Includes choice of double stack JBC or crispy chicken BLT with 4-piece nugs, small drink, and fries. U.S. price and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii. This report is sponsored by Wendy's $5 Biggie Bag.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM in this pre-recorded segment in this area. And of course, if you want to follow us on the very many social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And of course, live streaming on the free and reliable iHeartRadio app on KTSMradio.com, or of course, our live audience out there listening in Radio Land. However works for you, you're in the right place to be hearing about the things that affect us here in the borderland. So joined here again in studio by Lupe De La O, Vice Chair for the El Paso County Republican Party. Thank you very much for sticking around with us here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely happy to have you on because there's a lot of serious issues going on here. We're talking about some of the election parts of it in the first segment there, but more specifically, and some conversations we've, of course, been taking up quite a lot of our airtime and have even had some national conversations with here. Again, got invited to be on the Beyond the Beltway program over the weekend to talk about what we are seeing literally on the streets of El Paso right now when it comes to everything involving the immigration, the border security questions, the vetting, migrants, illegal immigration, asylum seekers. It's all literally spilling onto our streets here right now. And you have some unique experience, at least in the background, how a lot of these processes work, right?
Yes, I'm a retired ICE special agent, which now they call HSI, ICE, Homeland Security Investigators. And for 20 years, prior to that, I worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office. So we prosecuted a lot of the drug smugglers and human traffickers. And after that, after the U.S. Attorney's Office, I worked at DEA. And I translated and transcribed undercover conversations from Spanish to English. And I also was a wiretap monitor. So I do have a lot of experience with what's going on in the border security. I worked in other countries on behalf of the United States in a program called CTPAT, Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism. I worked in Peru and trained private industry and governments on how to find the infiltration of terrorists or drug smugglers. And I worked in Colombia, and I worked in Honduras, and I worked in Juarez, Mexico, and in Puerto Rico. So I've been around. I know what I'm talking about. After I retired, I became certified Spanish interpreter at immigration court. So I know what goes on inside the courts.
So you've had hands on a lot of different the processes, both in the law enforcement side of these,
Yes.
and then in the court processes, the immigration courts, which of course an executive branch court here. So not strictly what people may think of when they think of courts as a regular
Yes.
courtroom proceeding, what they may have seen on TV, and it's significantly different because they're structured differently, still called courts and still presided over what we call judges, but not in the
Yes.
same way that anyone who's ever been sued would have been seeing and dealing with in that courtroom.
Correct. They have to follow immigration law, which is very, very specific. There's very few instances where they do use their discretion, depending on the person. Mainly people who have been here a long time and have not done anything wrong, and so they can use their discretion on those type of cases. But what's going on right now? When I first started hearing about it and saw it in the news, I went downtown and I saw all those people. I mean, first of all, you feel for them, of course. You feel sorry, the treacherous trip that they make to get here. But they are being told to come. They are being told, and now the word is out. Even those I've interviewed some, even though nobody told them to come, they come here for a better quality of life. They're looking for a better quality of life, but they go through a lot. But my problem, and this is my personal opinion, and I think everybody in law enforcement shares it. I've been talking to ICE agents, Border Patrol agents, local police officers, and there's the morale is low because when you take the job and you take an oath to follow the law and obey the laws, and everybody's being forced to break those laws, and that's not a good feeling inside of you, where you have to go out and you can't do your job that you applied for, and you're being asked or ordered to break the law. That is not good, and it's not good for our economy. It's not good for. We don't know who's coming in. We don't know them. They say they vet them. I don't know. I don't have any proof. We don't know where all our unaccompanied children have gone here because they are not U.S. citizens. They cannot be immediately placed in adoptive homes. You have to, for anybody to get adopted, you have to become a ward of the state first. So it takes a long time. So we've got to place them in different places. And from what I'm seeing lately, nobody has a sponsor. By law, you have to have a sponsor, but I understand that this administration has kind of canceled that. I heard it in the news. So people don't have to have a sponsor, and anymore. They don't even have to go through any type of a court system. They're just given a piece of paper and told to call in. I do telephonic interpreting, and some people do call in, not a lot. But they're calling them asylum seekers. They're not asylum seekers because they have to qualify for asylum, and it's not fair for those who really do qualify.
So essentially what you're
Yeah.
saying there is that, I mean, there may be, qualifications that they would have for asylum
Yes,
here, but
yes.
that you would call that qualifying after they've gone essentially through the immigration court process to then be qualified as asylum seekers or as an actual asylum recipient here once they are through that process. What you're saying there?
Well, there's even some type of a intake process where
Mhm.
we used to have, I don't know if they still have them, asylum officers where they ask you specific questions. and
In-depth
then
interviews, those kind of
right there
things,
it's
right?
determined if you should come in or not. And now they're letting everybody in. They're not even, I don't know that they're asking them. And I have not spoken to anybody in the city. I plan on going and speaking to the manager at FEMA. And because we're already spending $2 million to bus them somewhere else because we cannot sustain them. But no matter if the county pays, the city pays, the state pays, or the federal government pays, it's our tax dollars. You know.
Yeah. Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Lupe De La O, retired federal law enforcement and immigration officer, and of course also vice chair for the El Paso County Republican Party here. I want to go back to one thing you said previously because I feel like it needs to be talked about a little bit further. You mentioned about the kind of directives that existing agents, ICVP, Border Patrol, those federal authorities on the border. You'd mentioned there and used the phrase breaking the law here. So I want to make sure we're perfectly clear on that. When you're talking about that, is that they're being told to literally, violate statutes here, or more to, essentially the sense that I've gotten here is maybe to say certain concepts have been suspended, that the way processing is supposed to happen is kind of not as much of when we're going to specifically do something different than that, but we're kind of ignoring part of that for now, kind of that more discretion of enforcement here, or is it something different from that entirely?
Well, I would like to find out. I'm going to try to see if there's something in writing. I'm sure there is. There've got to be memos that are being put out, and from now on, you're going to do this differently, and this different. And it's all policy, and every president has a right to do policy. But allowing everybody to come into the United States without being vetted or admitted by an immigration official, without what is stated specifically in the law, and just entering into this country illegally is a crime, a federal crime. You can be charged. So I don't know. I need to find out more exactly how many people are going through the process, how many are being returned. But just seeing what I'm seeing, like everybody else, like a regular citizen, I don't see that. And I talked to Border Patrol agents along the river, and the morale is very low. They're overworked, understaffed. People are retiring. Even the local police officers that are out downtown, they're expressing concern. There's a lot of concern that a lot of people in this country don't really know what's going on. So, we'd like to. I'm glad that it's in the news so we can find out. And our shelters are at capacity, from what I understand. We can't have so many. I've never personally seen so many homeless people. I don't think they're going to stay too long because they're getting bussed out of here. But it's hard for any town. It's not fair for any town to just take them. And people are arriving into towns without announcing, without anybody giving them notice. Just like all the towns in the valley, the Texas Valley, they're all overwhelmed. There are more, what they're calling them, people who are arriving, immigrants, now that people, residents of those towns, such as Eagle Pass.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Eagle Pass, Del Rio, which of course, that whole situation with a different arriving population, that being largely of Haitian origin, what we're seeing here now, and what we're seeing that is literally spilling onto the streets of a lot of Venezuelan origin. So parallels, but differences throughout here. So based on your experience and the conversations that you've had with those, again, currently in federal law enforcement dealing with these issues here, staffing has long time been a issue, concern, and discussion point here, but it's not a simple thing. You can't just post up a help wanted and you get, another load of, ICBP, Border Patrol agents on board here. So realistically, that would be a long-term solution that should probably continue to be focused on, but realistically, in the short term here, what is needed to be able to deal with this, or at least get through the current situation and at least try to mitigate it as much here? I mean, a lot of talk has been about, resources, about what's needed, about getting some kind of staffing, even if it's like, civilian temporary staffers to take off some of those non-strictly law enforcement capacities here. Realistically, I mean, and not to just be kind of throwing money at the problem, what is needed at this point, again, from that law enforcement perspective and for the law enforcement needs?
Realistically, we don't need any of that additional staffing if we just close the border. I don't mean close the border. I didn't. Commerce has to be coming in. I don't mean not let legal people come in, and people who work back and forth and go to Mexico back and forth. Stop this illegal mass of people coming in. Just tell them not to stop. Put our agents on the border and send them back. Send them back like we used to. The laws are there. They may not be perfect, but the laws are very, very specific. You can't come into this country illegally. We don't know, if terrorists are coming in. We don't know. And that's my fear based on where I've worked and where I've been and what's happened to us, like 9/11. Personally, I think we're going to get attacked again. But we have to try our best. And we've got people out there. They're good people. That's why they sign up for this job. It takes at least a year to get hired on board for each person. So that would take forever. So all they have to do is stop this influx. Stop it. A lot of people are dying. 800 migrants have already died just trying to get here. How many people have been mistreated, raped, murdered? I mean, we have people that are being interviewed that see bodies all along the way up here. I mean, it's just a horrible situation for everybody. I don't know why they're calling it a humanitarian by letting them in. Just tell them stay home. What's happening to those countries over there, to their workforce? All these men, young men, are coming here. Who's going to run those countries? How are those countries going to progress or succeed? They have no workforce. I don't know. To me, it's just as simple as today saying, okay, we're blocking everybody from coming in. It's over with.
So in doing that, I mean, conceptually speaking, if there were to be then potentially a firm in between the port of entry complete block, I mean, even where here in El Paso, we have border barriers, we have still been seeing people do the crossing and then essentially being processed almost on the banks of the Rio Grande, the initial, at least, interaction with federal law enforcement. We've been seeing, again, not too far from here, kind of over near the Border Highway West expansion and the La Hacienda site, if I'm looking at the videos right here, essentially. Drove by there the other day and saw a lot of no activity going on at that moment. It was late at night, but a lot of lights being set up, a lot of extra focus in that specific area. But so if there were to be a lot more just firmness on the border itself here, would you also, I mean, it sounds like you also think there should be messaging going on essentially to the, the sending countries and communities saying that doesn't matter what the coyotes, what the cartels are telling you, don't give them your money. Do not make this trek here because you will not be allowed in on this side. Because, I mean, it'd be one thing to kind of, put a, physical and legal barrier into it in one place where there already some exist here, but to make it more firm that way, because then we could see a buildup and essentially more humanitarian crises happening, just south of the border here. So it sounds like you're saying it needs to be then in conjunction with very strong messaging.
Yes, and the children, a lot of children are disappearing. I've seen interviews where some reporters, national reporters, have interviewed some cartel members, and they're kidnapping the children and selling their organs to other countries. And that's only happening because their parents are trusting them to come here for a better life. And then they never see their children again. A lot of them are going into sex trafficking. The United States is the #1 country right now in sex trafficking. There's 4 countries that are at the top, and then there's countries that are at the top of human trafficking. But a lot of bad things are happening on both sides, everywhere, concerning this mass migration.
Again, guest right now here has been Lupe Della, of course, a retired federal law enforcement officer, and of course being involved in immigration, both on the courts and on, again, as a law enforcement officer, and of course now vice chair of the El Paso County Republican Party. Thank you very much for coming by to talk to us about some of these issues, some of what's going on both with the elections and with some of the situations we're seeing here in our region of the border here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, we got to take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, I'll go ahead and open up those phone lines as we normally do. So if you want to get your voice on the line here and make your own 2 cents, of course, we got those comments coming up, but the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A crash I-10 eastbound at Kansas involving 2 semis is slowing traffic. 15-minute delays, Prospect Street to Paisano Drive. I-10 westbound at Mesa, earlier crash there, blocking the right lane. Stop and go traffic on Edgemere. Eastbound between the Loop and Rich Beam due to a crash, Edgemere Boulevard at Joe Battle. And a crash with injuries westbound on North Loop Drive at Americas Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The European Union could be on the verge of breaking apart, but their new laws and policies are working against them and making things worse. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
During this interruption, let's talk about disruption, emerging new channels, cookieless media. Marketers, are you missing out on one of the most engaged audiences in today's new open web? With Viant's programmatic software Adelphic, stay in tune with digital audio, stream the future on CTV, and level up with in-game, so you can see an average 3 times return on ad spend, maybe even on this very program next time. Viant, built for the new open web. Built for now. Visit ViantNow.com to learn more.
Don't miss the energy savings event at Lowe's. Save energy and save money on select major appliances, including Whirlpool. Selection varies by location. Exclusions apply. Visit Lowe's.com for details. Valid through 9/28.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
At Children's Cancer Research Fund, we believe a world without childhood cancer is possible, but it takes all of us. And whether it's developing a groundbreaking treatment or helping a girl realize her dream.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program, though. Not going to be able to get to the calls right now. We're going to have to wait to the top of the hour here because we went a little bit too long with that interview. And to be honest with you, we got really in depth on some of the events coming up here, much of the campaigning, other stuff that we're going to have to put online for you just because we went way too in-depth even for this program here, at least what we can squeeze into an interview and get to all the other stuff here. So with consultation with our guests, we will be putting the full unabridged interview online here. In any case, we made sure to hit the really important points, but I'll have to again come back here at the top of next hour, get back into it. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A crash I-10 eastbound at Kansas involving 2 semis is slowing traffic. 15-minute delays, Prospect Street to Paisano Drive. I-10 westbound at Mesa, earlier crash there, blocking the right lane. Stop and go traffic on Edgemere. Eastbound between the Loop and Rich Beam due to a crash, Edgemere Boulevard at Joe Battle. And a crash with injuries westbound on North Loop Drive at Americas Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Millions of Americans live in recovery from a substance use or mental health disorder. Talking about recovery and sharing stories helps to break stigma and offers the hope that people struggling and their loved ones need. Mobilize Recovery Across America is a national bus tour with tons of resources. Join us during National Recovery Month and learn more. Get tour updates and share your recovery story at iHeartRecoveryMonth.com. Recovery isn't just possible, it's real. Learn more at iHeartRecoveryMonth.com.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The group of Venezuelan migrants flown to Martha's Vineyard last week by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis are filing a class action lawsuit. The group filed the suit against the Republican governor as well as Florida's transportation secretary. The lawsuit gives a detailed account of how the migrants boarded the two planes from Texas, allegedly under false pretenses that they say violated their 4th and 14th Amendment rights. Meantime, Governor DeSantis is defending his policy.
If you believe in open borders, then it's the sanctuary jurisdictions that should have to bear the brunt of the open borders.
He told reporters at an oyster bar the ones he flew to Martha's Vineyard were left hungry and homeless by the Biden administration in Texas. It's a down day on Wall Street as investors brace for another large interest rate hike by the Federal Reserve. All three major averages tumbled about 1% as the Federal Open Markets Committee began a two-day meeting to discuss economic policy. The special master overseeing the seized documents from ex-President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home is pressing Trump's lawyers about whether they were declassified. The former president has said he declassified the various top secret and highly sensitive documents, but Judge Raymond Deary is looking for evidence on the claim. Renting a single-family home still costs more than it did last year. Lisa Taylor reports.
The financial services company CoreLogic says rents were 12.6% higher this July compared to the same month last year. Miami led the way with a nearly 31% jump, while Phoenix rents increased by more than 12%. However, CoreLogic's principal economist noted the continued slowdown of increasing rents compared to previous months.
The Confederate Memorial at Arlington National Cemetery should be taken down. That's the conclusion from the government's naming commission. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Despite comments from President Biden that the COVID pandemic is over, those on the front lines of the public health crisis say otherwise.
Healthcare professionals say COVID-19 is still here and hundreds of people are still dying each day. Dr. William Sang, assistant medical director of Kaiser Permanente, says while people are moving on with their lives, they need to be aware of the risks the virus still poses.
This is still around. This is still killing more people than death from motor vehicle accidents. It's killing more people than the drug epidemic.
Dr. Sang saying everyone should have at least 3 shots of a COVID vaccine, and if you're sick with COVID symptoms, get on the monoclonal treatments as soon as possible. I'm Eddie McCoven.
The FDA is warning TikTok users against trying an online recipe for NyQuil marinated chicken. The feds say sleepy chicken, as it's called, is dangerous and potentially deadly. The FDA says cooking the medicine makes it more powerful and can change its properties. They add that inhaling the vapors during the cooking process can cause lung damage. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy continues his call for the Mass Transit Authority to give New Jersey drivers a fair deal with congestion pricing. Scott Pringle reports.
Governor Murphy tells CNBC that New Jersey commuters are under assault and calls congestion pricing a double tax. Now, it's still unclear what discount, if any, that New Jersey drivers will get for this congestion pricing toll after already paying the Hudson River crossings tolls. But Murphy says he wants a fair deal. The MTA is in the process of coming up with a congestion toll that could be as high as $23 for drivers who enter Manhattan below 60th Street.
Star Wars actress Kelly Marie Tran is set to star in a biopic centered on one of her real-life best friends. Tran will play civil rights activist Amanda Wynn in the upcoming film. It'll tell her story of surviving sexual assault in college to becoming an activist for survivors' rights. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
The can't-miss music event of the year is finally here.
Our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Featuring once-in-a-lifetime performances from the biggest superstars.
Live from T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. This Friday and Saturday night, starting at 8 p.m.
Watch on the CW app and CWTV.com. And listen on iHeartRadio.
Capital One is the proud partner of the iHeartRadio Music Festival for the 6th year in a row, bringing great products, rewards, and services to its customers. What's in your wallet?
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories podcast.
The Pony Express is known worldwide, but its story is not. It was part of a larger company and only lasted 18 months, which was sort of the plan all along. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know how important it is to be confident in all of life's close-up moments.
And bad breath can rob you of your confidence.
Yeah, it can. Whenever I'm rubbing elbows with celebrities or friends or just chilling at home, I got to make sure I have the confidence that comes with Smart Mouth mouthwash.
Smart Mouth is clinically proven to eliminate and prevent bad breath for 24 hours with just 2 rinses a day.
Get to your favorite retailer right now for that kind of better together confidence.
Find Smart Mouth at your favorite retailer or at smartmouth.com/radio.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're speaking another language. Like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right. And they're designed by real language teachers, so you learn how to have real-world conversations, things you'll actually use.
3 weeks. It's incredible. After 3 weeks, I'm on vacation in Paris, having a conversation in French.
There's all kinds of ways to learn. Use Babbel's podcasts or games or videos. You can even join live classes with a language teacher.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
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 Babbel. Évidemment.
Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso. Weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you. Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And let's talk El Paso.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. Save money and energy at home this summer by using window coverings, such as curtains or shades, to prevent heat gain through your windows during the day. Some shades can reduce unwanted solar heat through windows by up to 60%. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Tired of the news about how everything is costing more?
Everything is stubbornly high.
Us too. That's why we made the iHeartRadio app absolutely free. When you download the free iHeartRadio app, you have the radio stations you love at your fingertips whenever you want, wherever you want, along with millions of podcasts from the news you crave to the true crime series you can't resist, playlists to fit any mood or activity. And here's the part you don't want to miss. It's all free. Download the free iHeartRadio app and discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. However you're getting at us, if you're able to see, hear, comment if you like here, call in if you really want to, that's the good place and the right place for you to be here. Never going to be a quiz. Do have that phone line open, full up at the moment, though. A lot of commentary about our issues going on today, as is to be perfectly expected given what is going on here. But if you want to try to squeeze in a little bit later, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Yeah, I'll be surprised if we get any of those other issues that I brought up there, but so much to be expected. So a lot of people chiming in over on the social media, including Stephen Christopher, Kathy Codry, James Holmes, RG, James Ratcliffe. We'll see a little bit earlier. Did have Maria Coleman, James Penato, and Steve Ivy, and a whole lot more. Flaco Jimenez, Todd Fisk. Is it Fisky? Fisk? Louis Penato, if I didn't say that already, and Ida Beza Gardner, dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate it. Jose Munoz, James Holmes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Ion Grimm, Ed Clor, Flaco Jimenez, and Ida Beza Gardner. More of those comments coming in, so keep those going, and we'll putting them up. Jose mentioning that there. Yes, absolutely. And again, to keep those going, we'll pop those up on screen as we have been and read the ones we find relevant at the moment. But in any case, let's go back to those phone lines. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Right now, we do have Oscar calling from up in Las Cruces on the line here right now. Oscar, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Andrew.
And happy Las Cruces chili harvest, okay, you guys? Be out here and remember, man, it's what it's all about. But thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm so grateful for your program over the years, for sharing ideas, and so many people care to listen. You've always been a breath of fresh air, both in El Paso and this area, and for allowing people to share the feelings. But I listen often to many viewer and listener comments on many media, like C-SPAN and outside color media and newspapers online. My humble opinion is that basic history education in our schools fails to focus on civics for young students to understand the world in which we will be forced to live. Remember, in our early education, this was a common study in normal public education, and to understand the law and our Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
In election promotions, I hope it would be a benefit for each candidate or incumbent to actually print out a statement of their goals or intentions for so many seniors and voters to understand, and for a rating agenda to hold their feet to the fire on what they promise to accomplish for the area of their efforts. Remember, we're a united nation of 50 states, and our Constitution recognizes it as a separate and a way to judge. So that's what I wanted to share with you and everyone. So, but I sure love your program.
Well, I appreciate that much, and I'll definitely agree with you on the idea that, basic civics education on, the American system as it exists. I mean, there's a reason that I have the copy of the Constitution I keep in front of me. It's not just a nice prop that I can then fling at people being like, well, I have the Constitution, therefore I tend to find myself reading it often or not. We just moved here, and so I have definitely been poring over some of my different texts, including my constitutional law books from college here, and reviewing some of the cases that I have found very impactful or relevant to what we discuss here. And a lot of that comes from me out of something that I got to experience as a younger man, and that was going to the Arizona Youth Leadership Conference, which I was involved with some years afterward, that focused on the constitutional education, because it's both enthusing to me that there are young people who understand it, are being taught that, but the amount of them that said, I never learned this kind of stuff in school, and realizing that, there's was the talk of it, but like necessarily learning like explicitly how to say amend the Constitution it may have been covered, but not something like, and here's what you need to know about how it works. So civics, those kind of things, definitely important, and why we've had more than a couple of times on this program talking about organizations and individuals who are trying to focus on that, because I find that, critical, not just as a, subject of interest, but to the future of this country.
Oh, thank you very much, Andrew. And you hit it. You hit the nail on the head about that. It's quite often everyone takes it. I mean, I guess we just let it go by the wayside. But history and Constitution and like you just mentioned, understanding where we recognize law and respect and everything is so important in our culture. That's why we're Americans, and that's why they're the greatest country in the world. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the call. The point there. You have a good one.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Absolutely here. I mean, getting into these things is important here. I'm reminded of I know I reference movie clips a lot here because that's just kind of how I am as a person. Or to bring up another point we got on screen there about the district attorney situation. We'll talk more about that here in a second. But there's a movie that I actually haven't seen all of, but there's one clip about it from the movie Captain Fantastic with Viggo Mortensen, where he has his young daughter recite part of the Constitution or the concepts there, and essentially as a homeschool kind of thing. And one of the questions from like his relatives questioning some of those life choices say, is she just parroting it, or does she actually understand it? And she goes into further the concepts here. And let me just say, that's life goals for any of my future progeny right there. But let's go back to those phone lines again. Well, let's read that comment from RJ here real quick. Okay, to change the subject, Rosales, referring there to, I do believe, the district attorney for El Paso there, scares me as she handles the 8-3 shooter case and taking off Judge Medrano. It's not a good idea if you're looking to work well with other judges. Yeah, that is one of those other subjects that we need to delve into further here. One interesting wrinkle. So to address what he's talking about there, yes, they're seeking a removal of the judge, which has been talked about by many commentators on that. Not usually a move done by the prosecution very successfully, or even attempted by the prosecution that often. So we'll keep an eye on how that one works here. But also further on, there's also some interesting maybe supports, or at least trying to push for it here. Look up on Facebook if you're over there. Truth Matters, based here in El Paso. Become aware of that. I've been looking into it. Take a look at it, and might have more discussions about that later. But let's get back to those phone lines here. We have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. Sheriff Wiles said a couple of days ago, although the vast majority of undocumented immigrants who come from the United States are decent people, this situation is ripe for terrorists and criminals to simply walk across our border and do harm to our citizens. Judge Samaniego and other city and county officials seem to think it's their constituents' responsibility to take care of every illegal that crosses the border. To use funds from one of the poorest and overly taxed areas in the United States to help people who are breaking into our country and placing their constituents at risk from increased crime and threats. Why is it that we have allowed a federal problem, which they've created, to become our local problem?
Actually, that's a legitimate question here. I mean, that's more than time. I think we got the rest of this hour, but let me try to summarize a couple of the thoughts I've definitely had on that point here. That we have seen, whether you call it lack of investment, a difficult investment, or just the lack of resources being provided to, particularly within the El Paso border sector, but we really know it's endemic across the entire southern U.S.-Mexico border here, of the resources being provided to the officials in charge of this. They've been strained for a moment here, and they've been strained in many other areas. The reason, of course, we're talking about this is that, cows come home to roost or something like that is going on in their area right now. And specifically, all of our previous mechanisms to deal with this, because sure, we have had offshoots of previous border crisis moments happen here or be delivered here, but specifically, this is not, with what we're looking at with the demographics of those that are arriving in this sector at this point in time, is not one where it's able to be just kind of moved out of the area, which was always the mechanism that has been built up over decades here. So we're talking about both a lack of federal resources. We're talking about a straining and, frankly, an outmoding of the current systems that already are in place here. So really, I'd come down a lot on the fact that, given that how much the debate has happened, particularly when we talk about Operation Lone Star, etc., about the conflict between state and federal efforts on this, and how much of the commentary, particularly from the White House and the administration, has come down to be, well, it's a federal authority and a federal responsibility, therefore we should be in charge of it, that at what point, and I'm not one that says this lightly here, but at what point is a responsibility considered abdicated because of a lack of work on it? And sure, there is supposed to be a cursory interview of those seeking asylum coming through our area. I'm not even sure that is happening at this point, given the overwhelming of all of the resources at every level here in our region.
We haven't even been reimbursed from FEMA since January. All our funds and everything that have gone to this problem, we haven't been reimbursed since January, and that's giving a loan to a federal government that has caused this problem. We need to get rid of Judge Samaniego and vote for Guadalupe Jenner, and we need to get rid of Congresswoman Veronica Escobar and replace her with Irene Armendariz Jackson. That would go a long ways to taking care of the problem that we have in our city, right, in our county. We need to go out and vote for Guadalupe Jenner and Irene Armendariz Jackson. Please go out and vote for them.
As one previous commentator did note here, I think I probably lost it in the flow of all of them here. But yeah, we are that 48 days out from Election Day. So I will certainly agree with you on the fact that people need to vote and need to take part in this, because if they don't, well, the whole phrase, you get what you vote for here. But if you're not even involved in even taking this step, frankly, I also fully support the idea that you've lost your right to gripe about this, because if you're not involved in it in any way, you're just kind of passively accepting what we get. So if we either love that or hate that, do something about it. Absolutely.
One more point.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it interesting that these people that are coming from a country like Venezuela and all these other countries are paying coyotes $10,000 per person to make it to the border? And we know that a lot of these people that are coming from Venezuela are being released from their jails on the provision that they'll come to the United States. Where are these people getting the $10,000? Isn't that kind of an interesting question? Because are they getting them from NGOs from the United States? Are they getting them from our government to come here and destroy our United States?
Let me just.
Where is that money coming from? $10,000 per person to make a trip from Venezuela to the border.
Let me just say this, that if it were to come out that any level of public funds, whether it be, I mean, particularly from the U.S., but even if it was from any, say, NGOs, that particularly any of that do exist within this country and get any kind of, tax incentives, breaks, public funding, whatever, if any of that money, regardless of the funding sources, any of going to that, beyond the idea of implications, replacement migration, we've talked about that, but the fact that we would then be supporting this inherently awful system, the thing that we have heard nothing particularly good said about, even on a good day, and very many completely awful and unconscionable things that have happened on the process, on that trail. It's not exactly like booking a cruise with these coyotes where you just, float over to your destination. It is horrific, the stories that we have heard. So if any level of public funds are going towards that, there's many other words I want to use here, but let's just say that throw the book at him would be the minor phrase I'd be wanting to apply to anyone that has been involved in that.
Wouldn't it be interesting if a reporter actually took a trip from with a Venezuelan from Venezuela over to the border, see how long it takes and what they have to go through, and whether or not it's really even possible that instead that maybe we are sending planes over there, picking up Venezuelans, dropping them off a few miles off of Juarez or someplace by the border, and letting these people off and then coming into the United States. I would like to see that reporter do an investigative study to find out whether or not that's happening or not, because I don't see how in the world these people are coming up with $10,000 per person when they don't have, even the clothes on their back when they come over here.
I think, in short, the answer is probably partially that it may not be all money that is being given up to this, leading to some of the further stories. But I'll agree with you on the minor point here of, yes, I would love to see, because there's been some reporting and study been doing on the quote-unquote sending communities, including by organizations within our region. But I think the actual, say, following the trail, so to speak, even further would be, well, award-winning journalism if done properly. Absolutely. So, all right, we'll tell you, we got to take that next break now. So thank you for the point in the call.
Let's go Biden.
Fair enough.
Or let's go Brandon. I'm sorry. Let's go Brandon.
Fair enough here. All right. Well, thank you for the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you.
All right. Got to take that break. Coming out of this break, we will get to more of the phone lines and the calls and the comments, everything that we do during this point during the show. So that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound downtown still pretty slow from Kansas Street over to Paisano Drive with 11-minute delays because of that earlier crash. I-10 eastbound at Kansas. I-10 westbound at Mesa Street, that accident is cleared. Americas Avenue southbound at North Loop, a crash there is blocking 2 middle lanes. And Edgemere Boulevard eastbound at Joe Battle, Cream Boulevard. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The Ethereum merge just happened, and I'm going to break it all down for you. What does it mean? What are the trade-offs? What's the misinformation and more? I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Kick off your season with a win at Sun & Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sun & Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We need trades, and we need them now. Even if you owe thousands more than what your vehicle is worth, we want it. So trade today and upgrade today for less.
For a limited time, get 0 APR for 72 months on new 2022 Ram trucks and on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating. Plus, during Jeep Adventure Days, get $4,000 off MSRP on select new Jeep Gladiators. Worried about your credit? Forget about it. We've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less at Sun & Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun. At I-10 at Sun & Park Drive or online at sunandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Subscription required. Refund available for 60 days after purchase.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 90% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. You'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the biggest brands at 90% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but 90% cheaper. It's the same medication you get from your doctor, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. Results are guaranteed or your money back. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
Is there a calculator that can't compute in your kitchen drawer? Recycle it at Staples. A shredder that won't shred under your bed? Or a collection of cables cluttering up your closet? Recycle them now at Staples. With Staples Free Tech Take Back, we'll recycle your old tech free. Plus, rewards members get $5 back in rewards. So if you have modems, mice, and mobile phones making a mess of your home, recycle them now at Staples. Limit 1 reward per month. Redeemable in-store only. Exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/recycling for details.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline. So I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Oh, a lot of things we're talking about here today, or a lot of facets of one particular issue, I should say, with a smattering of other subjects coming in there, as is pretty well expected for what's going on here recently. The immigration crisis and issues going on in our area, but also in general, beyond our area, very much a focus, and I can actually say I am not surprised here, but lot of commentary coming in there that we'll get further to. One point I want to kind of address here, saying Louis Pinato saying that if the immigrants had $10,000, they wouldn't be coming here. This invasion is being funded from the outside. I mean, I almost get the reasoning behind that there, saying that, well, someone is clearly causing this. It wouldn't be happening on its own here. But you also have to remember something. We're not just like talking about $10,000 in liquid assets. Again, if that is the full price being paid for by each individual, because sometimes we'll be, okay, we'll just take literally everything you own. You can make up the rest to us here. And that's why you start ending up seeing those stash houses situations we've also been seeing in our area and beyond, in another way of saying, no, you actually need to pay us more money. So you got to take it out of the people that are still left behind from you. And they have to send us the money and you'll be let free, but probably not, is the subtext there. So I get what you're saying, the concern that comes with it, but I got to disagree with it, because Occam's razor style here. You're talking about desperate people trying to do something that sounds to them, or at least they're being sold a bill of goods, that it will work out for them, and giving up everything so that even have even less to try to return to. It's definitely a recipe for disaster and what we're seeing in our area. But let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, the border is not secure.
I think that's pretty well an understatement here, but to say that it is an open border, I think that's a step too far even in this situation, because, I mean, okay, given this, particularly the stat we're looking at now coming out today about the 2 million arrests being expected, well, having happened so far, on 2.3 million, surpassing previously. I guess just going definitionally, I know that there's often a rhetorical point being made by people talking about this, is that there would be no arrest. There would be no enforcement overall. So that's why I take it as somewhat of a kind of disrespecting to those authorities that are still trying to do something, even if there may be some confounding of efforts coming from, say, instructions from the current administration.
Yes, but believe me, Mayorkas, Biden, and Kamala Harris have no intention of enforcing this country's immigration laws.
I will say that it does seem to be that there is given the way policies have been changing, shifting, and the lack of resources being provided in a whole lot of ways, and the constant fact of that most of what we're hearing from the administration, this is just straight facts, has been focused on, again, kind of that whole bucket and faucet analogy we're coming through. We're dealing with trying to add more buckets, maybe moving the buckets faster, but essentially, eventually, the yard still is going to get flooded unless you're dealing with the other side of the issues.
Well, on that point, this issue is not only going to it's not only creating a humanitarian issue, but wait and see, mark my words, this county jail and the annex are going to be filled to capacity. I just hope the charges don't get dismissed.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think if you're talking about particularly on the human smuggling side of it, because unless we're looking at a potential where there could be use of those facilities for housing of them, those that are processing through the asylum claims, I don't think we'll see that. But referring to the other part of it, we refer to, okay, we got the people crossing right over the border, not too far from our station here. We have got the people being smuggled across and those ditching efforts, along with also, of course, the stash houses. So the bailouts, I think, is the term we've all settled on about that here. That continues to happen with, it's hard to say exactly increasing frequency, but more than I could ever remember it coming up.
Well, not only those perpetrators that you're talking about, but when you have so many people here and you don't have anything to eat, no place to sleep, you become desperate. You hang out with the wrong people. You start breaking into homes, and eventually the police here are going to get overwhelmed, and the county is going to get overwhelmed. But hey, Samaniego said, let them come over. We can handle it.
Yeah, I do believe I said at the time that I'm wondering how that statement will work out in hindsight, but I think that question is kind of largely getting answered now about. So, yeah, anytime you say to bring it, it's almost like anyone who has worked, I've had friends who work in like EMS or, first responders kind of thing. And the one phrase you never say is, man, it's quiet tonight. And that kind of feels like it's on that order of like, okay, we're ready for it. It's like, why did you say it that way?
Right. Well, brings me to my next two and last points. Okay, basically, there are 5 tenets of the rule of law, and this is coming from the American Bar Association. Okay, and I'll quote 2 of them. Number 1 is no one is above the law. Number 2, everyone is held accountable to the same laws. We're not enforcing any of these laws, so how can any of these individuals be held accountable?
That is true, and particularly when it comes down to, well, the return rate. Again, we talked a little bit during that interview, I do believe, from today. And again, thanks to Lupe De La, Vice Chair of the Paso County Republican Party, for providing her perspective on both the election things and on the immigration issues from her time spent as a federal law enforcement and immigration official. That, yeah, the return rates, because honestly, the asylum approvals, particularly in our region, the number I'm quoting is from a couple of years ago, but I have not heard of any particular changes or significant differences with it. That, yeah, we're in the upwards of 90% denials of asylum process applications here once it finally gets to I'm not sure if it technically counts as the adjudication process at that point, because we are not in a judicial system court. It's an immigration court, which, not to go too deep in the weeds there, but once it's finally decided upon by that immigration judge, the answer, again, more than 9 times out of 10 is no.
Right. Well, last point, a bunch of illegal aliens from Venezuela filed a class action lawsuit against Governor DeSantis. Did you hear about that?
I've heard of a variety of things going on DeSantis, including potential arrest efforts or, other things going on, including, cases being filed in both federal and civil court here. So I don't know if I heard about one specifically, but I've certainly heard about a lot of legal challenges going on, surprisingly against DeSantis. I guess I would have expected more to come against Abbott, but I guess DeSantis was more focused on the flights than anything, which I guess is more of a lightning rod for this. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what to make of it.
Well, it's interesting how these advocacy groups, because I'm sure these attorneys are not seeking out the people to sue other individuals. That would be barratry. But these advocacy groups, it's garbage that they're out to help these people. No, they're out for the money. That's all they want. They're out for the money. And I'll tell you this much. They can do all these people in the left-wing bar, they're probably going to do judge shopping. In other words, seeking out those judges that were appointed by Clinton, Obama, and Biden. So, like I said, these people in the left-wing bar and these advocacy groups, it's all about the money. It's not about the immigrants.
And I think at the very least in the money on the side of making it hurt for them, potentially. But again, we'll see how those prosecutions work out here. So thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Well, DeSantis and Abbott are very smart attorneys. They're no dummies. But anyway, I turn the mic over to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you very much. Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right. Tell you what, we're way over time here. So we're going to go ahead and take that next break, get to more of the comments, at least some other questions coming up, and I do have an answer for that here. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso coming up after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Getting towards, getting past the bottom of the hour for this hour, but we'll still keep taking those calls. That number to call again, 915-544-5876, for KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. The owner of a popular restaurant in Las Cruces has been arrested and accused of shooting and killing his wife. Bob Iacone was shot by Doña Ana County Sheriff's deputies when they responded to a call at his Picacho Hills home on Sunday night. According to a news conference today, Iacone killed his wife, who was the owner of Forget About It Italian restaurant. Deputies had responded to a 911 call about an injured woman. When they arrived, they found the victim, Kim Iacone. That's when her husband allegedly got into a shootout with deputies. He was shot and wounded, but is expected to survive. In El Paso, a sculpture of famed Mexican President Benito Juarez is expected to arrive tonight and will be installed tomorrow at the Chamizal National Memorial. The 12 Travelers of the Southwest Memorial is a nonprofit group that raised more than $200,000 to pay for the sculpture. The Benito Juarez sculpture depicts him as a boy sitting next to his adult counterpart. It will be formally dedicated on Sunday. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
An earlier crash involving two semis, I-10 eastbound at Kansas, still slowing traffic. It is stop and go on the 10 eastbound downtown Kansas Street over to Paisano with 13-minute delays. Slow traffic on Spur 601 eastbound, too, from the 54 Gateway over to the Loop on the Liberty Expressway. It's 11-minute delays. South Americas Avenue at North Loop Drive, a crash is blocking two middle lanes. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the Forewarn Weather Center, this is CBS 4 weather forecaster Brady Brewster. Temperatures still staying slightly above normal. That's not going to just be today. That'll be all the way through your work week and even into your weekend. Looking at those daytime highs in the lower 90s, and we're also going to be drying out across the borderland, so a lot more sunshine to come as well. Be sure to visit our website, cbs4local.com, for a full look at your 7-day forecast.
This report is sponsored by Napa Auto Parts.
The Pony Express is known worldwide, but its story is not. It was part of a larger company and only lasted 18 months, which was sort of the plan all along. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You wash your hands and brush your teeth, but what about your nose? How do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage pulls saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, flushing out allergens, mucus, dirt, and germs, and it's why nose cleaning is the next evolution in daily personal hygiene. People try Navage for lots of reasons: sinusitis, allergies, snoring, things that make it hard to breathe through your nose. But over time, they also find that cleaning their nose makes them feel better, a lot better. Nearly 3 million Navage users have written more than 100,000 reviews, averaging 4.7 stars, saying things like, best product I've ever used, and amazing, I love my Navage. That's because Navage helps you breathe better, sleep deeper, and snore less. But the biggest payoff is improved health. Here's the key point. Navage is good personal hygiene, and it's going to help you stay healthier. At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, Target, and online. Navage, Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
The Pony Express is known worldwide, but its story is not. It was part of a larger company and only lasted 18 months, which was sort of the plan all along. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories podcast.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Want to get to some of those other questions and other points being brought up here, because I know I don't want to seem like we're being totally one-track mind here, but RJ asking another question: how much did the feasibility study cost for the arena? I say we study it till there's no money left to build it. We'd have a ways to go here, because again, according to El Paso Inc., their story out recently this week, that we definitely intend to talk a little bit further about what we might have to do it in an apostrophe like this. City Council approved $798,661. So about $2,000, just under $2,000 shy of $800,000 cost for that. That was approved back in April. So answering your question there, and Kathy Coder saying not building a damn thing until the economy bounces back before Brandon was installed there. And to my question about not sure why DeSantis has become the lightning rod in the suits for them, given that Abbott and the whole Operation Lone Star here in Texas have been going on for a minute. But some very quick answers to that here. Stephen Christopher saying DeSantis is a bigger threat. James Holmes saying very similarly, DeSantis is more of a threat as a president than Abbott. So a little bit of the kind of like pre-run spikage I think you're talking about there. James Radcliffe also pointing out that they claim he violated their Fourth Amendment right of all things. And RJ saying somewhat pithily, lesson 1, don't tick off Martha's Vineyard. And Sean Gardner back on the local immigration situation. Samaniego should have all of them over to his house for barbecue and to camp out in his yard, since he says we could handle it. I mean, I'm not going to totally put that on any elected official in our area, but yeah, there's certainly some crow on the menu that should probably be getting to eaten here. But a whole lot more points being brought up there. Get the comments going here. But let's go back to those phone lines again. That number to call, squeeze in what we can, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Tom on the west side here with us right now. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Andrew, thanks. It sure seems like our country is getting hijacked. I don't understand it. We set up Homeland Security to have our country protected, certainly after 9/11. And it seems like we're just losing more of our civil liberties. I mean, we have people that can stream into the country. We have no idea what diseases they have. Do they have monkeypox? Do they have COVID? Why are they not tested? And who's paying for their stay? I'm down here on Overland Street, And there aren't any of these migrants down here. And all last week there were hundreds.
Right.
So where are they now?
Well,
it's-
simple answer to that is that you and I are paying for them through either local or federal taxes at a certain point here, because, yeah, there have been a couple of places to answer the specific question about where those populations you're talking about have been moved, either into hotels in some cases or to other temporary shelters, with the more long-term shelters apparently being now underway to be created.
Right. So you had a previous guest, Lupe De La O, on, and she was incredibly informative, being that I think she had stated she was in Border Patrol, ICE, and Homeland Security.
Correct.
Throughout her career. And she basically gave us the honest truth of what's going on. I mean, the people who are supposed to be protecting us, the Border Patrol and ICE and Customs, are demoralized. But we have Homeland Security. This is Homeland Insecurity, if you really want to put a new name on it. I mean, every time I turn around, we have to jump through more hoops, let's say, to get a new driver's license or to go through TSA or what have you. Yet we have millions of people that we don't even know who they are streaming in. So, folks, we need to vote out Escobar. We need to vote out San Diego. We have to get Irene in. We have to. And if you're on the north side of El Paso, please vote for Blanca Trout, please, for county commissioner. This is just the one way that we have power to get our country back. So that's pretty much all I have to say. And thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing. Absolutely. Thank you for the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right. Appreciate it here. I mean, again, those elections, now that we're that 48 days and change away from it, again, we're going to be announcing more on our specific election coverage coming up here, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, we got more calls in the line here. Let's get now with Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call. Just a short comment on Lupe's interview. The question was brought up, how are the Border Patrol breaking the laws? Well, early on, Mayorkas told the Border Patrol that because people were here illegally was not cause to remove them. They're breaking the law. They're leaving people in here who are not legally here correctly, but they're allowed to stay here and not to be removed. So he acknowledges that they're here illegally, but he's also saying don't remove them. The second thing on the asylum seekers, everybody's claiming asylum. Federal law is very clear. They're supposed to be detained. What are the Border Patrol being told to do? You process them and you transport them out to another location, and then they will seek whatever they need to do somewhere else. That's the second instruction they have. These men are captive to their jobs, unfortunately. This government tortures everybody in their jobs that they love. He has turned jobs into something that we love, into a torture place. So those are two reasons why the Border Patrol have been told verbally by Mayorkas not to do that. And then I wanted to comment on Irene. We not only need to vote for Irene, that is Jackson, and get Escobar out because she supports all these crazy policies, but we need to also vote Lupe Hened, and we need to vote, like a gentleman says, Blanca, because Blanca has the same values and sees our county the same way Lupe does. We need more than one person fighting for our community in the county commissioner's court. So please go out and vote for Blanca and Lupe. And then I was reading today in the El Paso Times where it says that in a 21-month period of time from 2019 to 2021, the city spent $408,000, on illegal immigration. Then they said the first week of September this year, they have spent $383,000 in a week in September. That is a shocking number because it was like $20,000 a month over that 21 period of time. And now we're talking about $1.5 million a month.
Yeah, that more or less matches up with what I've heard. That more or less matches up with what we've heard so far. I think we talked a little bit about it yesterday, that the city's bill on this so far has been about, again, since the initial start of this current crisis, about $600,000. So you add that with the concept of what's sort of been seen during just that first week of September. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Well, Andrew, why is it that a facility in North Carolina can get a 5-year contract with an option to have an additional 5-year contract. They have 100 acres of land. They have 31 buildings that equal 412,000 square feet. They have an $18 million athletic center, and they have a 22-acre lake. Why can't El Paso find means to have the federal government to pay us? No, we go out, we spend our money, and then hope that the federal government reimburses us. They're not the only group that the federal government has paid money. There's a little group, lands $178 million government contract that could reach $1 billion to help illegal immigrants avoid deportation. Where is the due diligence from our county commissioners? There are monies out there. And that's my question to them the other day. Have you thought outside the box? What are you doing to research to find monies coming in instead of spending our tax dollar money? But like I said, you can't have a conversation when you go to commissioner's court. You just have a question. So those are the two comments I wanted to make. And Lupe had a great interview. I'm glad she went there and informed the citizens of El Paso that we need to vote out these radicals, vote out these leftists, and put people in there that put the community first and not illegal immigrants before us. Thank you, Andrew.
Sure thing. Thank you for the point on the call there, Barbara. Do appreciate it. All right, that's going to take us through that next break right now. I guess let me make one final point there on what Barbara there was addressing here. I thought of a better way to phrase it after that interview aired that we just had. It's not so much about whether they are being told to ignore things or not, but I guess the delineation I would make whenever we're talking about the breaking of the law on the part of any individual agent, officer, law enforcement official in general is whether they individually are making a decision that, no, I am not going to follow this policy or laws here, or that they're being instructed to do so by, say, administration, their department heads, etc. here. So I guess the higher up it gets, the less likely it is getting to be termed law breaking, even though the implications are that much bigger. I would also fully argue and understand the argument there on here. So I got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, squeezing what we can, get to tell you what we got coming up next for you on the show and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Earlier crash on the I-10 eastbound at Kansas Street involving a couple of semis. Stop and go all the way through the downtown area from the Prospect Street exit all the way over to the 54 Patriot, 12-minute delays. On the Spur 601 Liberty Expressway eastbound from the 54 Gateway over to the Loop, it's a 10-minute delay. A crash is blocking 2 middle lanes on South Americas Avenue at North Loop Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories podcast.
The Pony Express is known worldwide, but its story is not. It was part of a larger company and only lasted 18 months, which was sort of the plan all along. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Imagine for a moment that this ad was bought autonomously. Welcome to the new open web, where Viant is combining AI and human insight to create autonomous media buying that accelerates your return on ad spend. And using Viant's DSP Adelphic, you can now measure your media offline and online to see the full impact of your media spend, so you can spend more time on podcasts. Viant, built for the new open web. Built for now. Visit ViantNow.com to learn more.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-749-4779 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-749-4779. That's 800-749-4779. What do you have to lose? Call 800-749-4779. Again, 800-749-4779.
I'll never forget the call that my only son had been killed instantly by a distracted driver on her cell phone. Please hang up and drive.
Heads up, Texas. Using your phone behind the wheel can be deadly. Talk, text, crash. Brought to you by TxDOT.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Covered a lot of ground today, or at least on a lot of subjects within an overarching topic. But we've got a lot more that we're going to be bringing to you here. I mean, a lot more topics that we're developing for you and that are definitely going on in the region. Again, we're impending the announcement of our election coverage, and stay tuned for that, of course. But also some things going on with what the need is from some of those very important organizations in our areas, including El Pasoans Fighting Hunger. And, of course, we'll be talking tomorrow with our news partners over there at KFOX 14 on some of these big stories, getting into them, and includes the in-depth reporting as well. So stay tuned for all of that as we do. Let's squeeze in what calls we can here towards the end of the program here right now. We do have Nate on the east side here with us right now. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. And I'll try to make it short. But I would love to just make a point. There's a gentleman that called in yesterday, towards the ending of the show yesterday.
Okay.
And I just felt kind of bad for what he was, how much of a pain he was carrying in him. He spoke about meeting a man in a Goodwill from a local store here, and got into him actually calling this guy back racist names and stuff like that.
Right.
I'm not trying to tell him what to do with his life, but I just offer a perspective, a perspective about humility. Humility, if you want a good exercise in that, I don't want to try to preach to anybody, but just those of you that are believers and understand the stations of the cross and the life of Jesus, that's the essence of humility. To be able to take a punch and keep on moving forward towards the goal. He also stated he said he despised or hated the military, and even of course knowledge his father was a military man. But I'm just simply saying, as we military people, and many those cemetery out there is full of them too, go into veteran homes and different places, have fur and right in among people who are called names, throw things at them, and take their life for the very people who they are trying to help. But that's humility. And I just hope and pray that whatever that is that caused him to feel that way, go the humility route and just look higher than what that person was saying to you and be the better person. And that will help us all in all of these things. Humility is learning to suffer. Humility is a good thing. Those of you that understand what I'm talking about, make it relate. And I trust that we should continue to build that essence of humility versus you throw it in my face, I'm going to throw it right back at you. We'll never get anywhere doing that. Andrew, thank you for the time, sir, and I will be in contact with you.
That absolutely sounds good there. Appreciate the point in the call there. And I think we can squeeze in one more quick one. We do have Frankie and Messia here. We got about 30 seconds here, Frankie.
I could do it in 30 seconds. Let me just say it. Let me just tell you something. Oh, the Queen is dead. She's finally buried 10 years or 10 days after all this nonsense about her being buried. I'll tell you, we need to get back to what's important, and that is beating up the Donnie Dotard doofus and all his moron, MAGA-supporting, poorly educated nut jobs. That's what we need to. And finally, let me tell you something about Funnel Ben. Let's go, Amber! You El Pasoans out there need to rehire this girl. 30 years in the business. You're idiots if you do not rehire her. That's what I want to say.
All right. Well, thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. Thanks for sticking with the time there as
you
well.
Take care.
All right, you too as well. And that's going to do it for our show here today. We are super out of time for this program, so I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. You know we'll be doing it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m., as we do every Monday through Friday. So in the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. And have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Earlier wreck, I-10 eastbound at Kansas with the two semis. That is cleared. All lanes are back open. And stop-and-go traffic's getting better on the I-10 eastbound Dallas to the 54 Patriot. 6-minute delays. And accidents blocking 2 middle lanes on South America's Avenue at North Loop Drive. The spur is slow eastbound from the 54 Gateway over to the Loop. 11-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This Saturday, iHeartRadio is proud to partner with the 2022 Global Citizen Festival, celebrating the worldwide movement of people taking action now to save our planet and end poverty. With live performances from Metallica, Charlie Puth, Jonas Brothers, Måneskin, Mariah Carey, Mickey Guyton, Rosalia, Usher, SZA, and more. Coming to you live from New York City and Accra, Ghana this Saturday, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 Pacific. Listen exclusively on the Global Citizen channel with the free iHeartRadio app.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690. News on the
and
hour
iHeart
and
radio
the
station.
Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The group of Venezuelan migrants flown to Martha's Vineyard last week by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis are filing a class action lawsuit. The group filed the suit against the Republican governor as well as Florida's transportation secretary. The lawsuit gives a detailed account of how the migrants boarded the two planes from Texas, allegedly under false pretenses that they say violated their 4th and 14th Amendment rights. The Senate's top Republican is on board with the idea of sending migrants away from the border to other locations. Kentucky's Mitch McConnell